The battlefield had gone quiet in a way that felt wrong. Not peaceful, just empty. Smoke drifted low across the broken ground, stinging the air with the smell of burned metal and scorched soil. Wrecked walkers lay twisted like dead giants. In the center of it all, something still breathed. A massive, alien war beast lay on its side, armor split, limbs trembling. One eye was sealed shut with blood and dust. The other stared at the sky, waiting for something to finish what the war had started. It had not fled, it had not disobeyed, and still it had been left behind. Somewhere in the distance, unfamiliar footsteps approached, not running, not hunting. The war dog did not growl. It did not have the strength. The creature was called a Karox. Once, that name meant fear. On the front lines of the Varan expanse, Karox war beasts were bred for endurance, obedience, and unbreakable loyalty. They ran beside armored columns. They tore through barricades. They followed commands, without hesitation or doubt. This one had done everything it was trained to do. Its muscles still ached with remembered motion. Sprint, strike, shield the handlers, never fall behind. But during the last charge, its damaged leg had finally failed. Pain exploded through its frame. The ground rushed up, and when it tried to rise, its unit had already moved on. No pause, no glance back, no command to stay, just silence. The Karox did not understand abandonment. It only understood duty. Lying there alone, bleeding into the dirt, hurt more than the fractures in its ribs. Loyalty, it had learned, was not always returned. Time passed slowly. The sun crept higher, warming its cracked armor. The creature waited for enemies, or scavengers, or the cold pull of death. Instead, it heard voices. They were distant, uncertain, soft. The Karox tried to lift its head. Pain shot through its chest and it failed, releasing a low, broken sound that barely carried across the wreckage. The voices stopped. Then came footsteps, careful ones. A human recovery team moved through the ruins, scanning for survivors. Their armor was lighter than combat suits. Their weapons stayed lowered. They had not expected to find anything alive. They froze when they saw the shape on the ground. "That's a Karox," one whispered. "Enemy war asset," another replied. "It's breathing," a third said quietly. The creature watched them through its one open eye. In its conditioning, humans were chaos, loud, ruthless, dangerous. If they saw it, they would kill it. Or worse. It did not have the strength to resist either fate. One human stepped forward. Her name was Avery Cole. She was smaller than the others, her armor marked with a medical insignia instead of combat glyphs. She held no weapon, only a compact medlight that glowed softly in her palm. "It's scared," Avery said. Her voice was calm, low. "Look at its eyes. It's not preparing to strike." The team hesitated. The Karox's kind had slaughtered human squads before. Saving one was a risk no protocol covered. Avery knelt anyway. Slowly, openly. She kept her hands where the creature could see them, staying just beyond its reach. She moved the way humans moved around injured animals back on Earth. Careful, respectful, patient. "You're not alone," she said quietly. "We're not here to hurt you." The Karox did not understand the words, but it understood the tone. No command, no threat, no pain. Its ears twitched. The team exchanged glances. Leaving a living being behind felt wrong, even if it wore the armor of an enemy. They prepared a stretcher. When they drew closer, the Karox released a weak warning sound. Instinct, not aggression. Avery stopped immediately and lowered herself further, placing one hand flat on the ground between them. She waited. The creature's breathing slowed. The pain was still there, sharp and relentless, but something new pressed against it. Confusion, curiosity, a fragile pause in fear. The team moved again, slower this time. They lifted the heavy body with care, easing the broken frame onto the stretcher. The Karox did not fight. Its gaze never left Avery. As they carried it toward the transport shuttle, the wind swept across the field, carrying away the last echoes of battle. The creature closed its eye. Not in surrender. In relief. The human healing bay smelled clean, sterile. Nothing like the smoke-choked fields the Karox knew. Bright lights glared overhead. The creature tensed despite its exhaustion, muscles tightening automatically. In its past, bright rooms meant inspection, correction, pain. Avery walked beside the stretcher, her steps measured. She noticed every flinch, every twitch of fear. When they set the carriage down on a padded platform, it tried to rise. Its body screamed in protest, and it collapsed back with a strained sound that echoed through the room. A low growl followed. Defensive. Afraid. The others stepped back. Avery stayed. She knelt again, keeping herself low and visible. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe." The Karoks did not believe her. Its memories were full of handlers who punished weakness, of orders enforced through pain. Humans were supposed to be cruel. So why was this one different? A medic named Jonah Ree approached with a scanner. "We need to assess internal damage," he said quietly. Avery nodded, slowly. The scanner's light swept over fractured armor and bruised muscle. The Karoks flinched, claws scraping softly against the padding. Jonah paused. "It thinks we're attacking." "Of course it does," Avery replied. "It's never known anything else." When Jonah moved again, the Karoks snapped weakly. Not to bite, to warn. Avery shifted instantly, placing herself between the scanner and the creature. She raised one bare hand and removed her glove, resting her skin against the cool floor. She did not touch it. She waited. The Karoks stared at the exposed hand. In its experience, enemies never showed weakness, never exposed flesh. Slowly, it leaned forward and drew in a cautious breath. The scent was warm, steady, unafraid. Something inside the creature eased. Jonah resumed the scan. This time, the Karoks only watched. It remained tense, but it did not lash out. Hours passed. Armor fragments were removed, wounds cleaned, bandages applied. Each time fear rose, Avery's voice grounded it. The team noticed. "It responds to you," Jonah murmured. "It's not my voice," Avery said. "It's intent." That night, when the bay emptied, Avery stayed behind. She dimmed the lights. She sat nearby and ate quietly, making no sudden movements. The Karoks watched her. No one had ever rested near it without a command. "You're safe," she said softly. "I'll stay." The creature did not understand safety, but it understood presence. For the first time in its life, it rested without waiting for punishment. Morning light filtered into the bay. Avery returned with a ration tray and froze. The Karoks was standing. Its legs trembled violently, pain rippled through his frame. But it stood anyway, refusing the vulnerability of lying down. Avery approached slowly. "You don't have to prove anything," she said gently. The creature released a stubborn sound and tried to remain upright. Seconds later, its legs buckled and it sank back onto the platform with a heavy breath. Avery placed a thermal blanket beside it. Strength doesn't mean suffering. The Karoks studied her. Something in its chest loosened. Then the alarm screamed. Red light flooded the bay. The walls vibrated as a sharp voice echoed through the base. "Alert! Unknown hostile craft entering orbit. Possible Krix Dominion forces." The Karoks jolted upright. It knew that name, its former masters. Fear surged like a blade. Old commands echoed in its mind. Control. Obedience. Punishment. Avery rushed to its side. "You're safe here," she said, but she saw the terror rising. Explosions thundered in the distance. A soldier shouted from the corridor, "Avery, evacuate now. We can't secure this wing." Avery looked at the Karoks. The creature lowered its head. It waited to be left behind again. The corridor outside the healing bay filled with boots and shouted orders. Metal doors slammed. Warning lights pulsed, like a heartbeat gone wrong. Avery stayed where she was. She could feel the Karoks watching her, every muscle tight, every breath shallow. Its eyes were wide with the kind of terror humans usually only saw in children pulled from wreckage. It knew exactly what the alarms meant. It knew the sound of ships arriving. It knew the shape of the fear that followed. The Krix Dominion did not come to negotiate. They came to collect what belonged to them. A soldier appeared in the doorway, helmet visor, reflecting red light. Lieutenant Grant Maddox, tall and hard-eyed, scanned the room in one fast sweep. "Cole!" he snapped. "We're pulling back, now!" Avery did not move. If we leave it here, they'll take it. Maddox's jaw tightened. We cannot protect you and that thing. We don't even know what they want. Avery's voice went flat with certainty. They want the Karoks. Or they want it dead. The war beast flinched at the tone, as if it understood the meaning even if the words were alien. It drew back toward the far corner of the bay, claws scraping the floor, shoulders hunched. Its breathing turned rapid. Instincts screamed at it to obey the old chain of command. Return, submit, survive. But survival under the Cricks was not living. It was being used until you broke. And when you broke, you were discarded. Like yesterday. Like the battlefield. Avery crouched near it, careful not to crowd. Hey, she said softly, look at me. The creature's gaze snapped to her. The tremor in its limbs was worse now, like its body had turned into a storm of remembered pain. You're not theirs, Avery said. Her voice stayed low, steady, voiceover smooth. You don't belong to anyone. The Karoks stared, eyes shining with confusion. No one had ever told it that. The concept did not fit inside its training. It had never been given a choice. A heavy impact shook the corridor. Dust fell from the ceiling seams. Somewhere outside, a muffled blast rolled through the base like thunder trapped indoors. Maddox leaned in again, urgency sharpening his tone. Cole, move. If they breach this wing, you're done. Avery did not look away from the Karoks. Then we don't let them breach. Maddox stared at her like she had lost her mind. Then he swore under his breath, turned and shouted down the hall. Rally to the medical, now. Avery heard the quick reply. The base was already reacting. But she also knew this was bigger than a hallway fight. The Cricks were methodical. They did not storm. They advanced like machines, cutting through anything that slowed them. The Karoks took one shaky step forward, then another, placing itself between Avery and the door without even thinking. It did not bare its teeth. It did not snarl. It simply moved to shield her, like it had once shielded handlers in battle. Avery's chest tightened, even terrified, even injured. It still protected the one thing it didn't fully understand. Maddox saw it too. His expression shifted, just slightly. You've got 30 seconds to decide, he said. Avery answered instantly. I already decided. The outer doors to the medical wing hissed open with violence. Two figures entered the corridor. They were taller than humans, wrapped in angular armor that seemed to drink the red light instead of reflecting it. Their helmets were narrow, sharp, built like predatory faces. Blue energy shimmered along their weapons, a humming sound that made the air feel thin. Crick's retrieval troopers. Avery had seen their work on other fronts. They didn't just kill. They made examples. They turned fear into policy. The lead trooper stopped, its helmet angled toward the open bay door. There, it said in a voice like metal scraping stone, the asset remains functional. The second trooper stepped closer, weapon rising. Retrieve. The Karoks froze. It recognized the cadence, the cruelty, the ownership hidden inside a single word. Retrieve. Its body reacted before its mind could catch up. It backed into the corner, shoulders pressed against the wall, trembling hard enough that its bandages shifted. Every memory slammed back into place. The shock collars, the pain rods, the endless drills, the beatings for hesitation. Avery moved. She stepped in front of the Karoks without thinking, planting her feet on the floor like she could physically hold back the Dominion. You're not taking it, she said. The lead trooper tilted its head. Human medic, step aside. Dominion property is not subject to your sentiment. Avery's voice sharpened, but it did not rise. It's not property. The trooper's weapon lifted another inch. Step aside. Behind Avery, the Karoks made a broken sound, half warning, half fear. It expected Avery to flee. It expected her to do what everyone did when the Cricks came close. Run. Leave it. Avery did not run. She reached back, not touching the creature, just letting her fingers hover near its shoulder so it could feel her presence. You choose, she whispered, so low only it could hear. You're not theirs anymore. The Cricks trooper took a step forward. The hallway lights flickered. The humming of the weapon grew louder. Avery could hear her own breath in her helmet. Then the Karox moved. Not fast, not strong, but determined. It pushed forward, placing its damaged body between Avery and the Crick's weapon. It bared its teeth. Not in hate, not in rage, in protection. The Crick's trooper paused, stunned. It defends the human. The second trooper's voice snapped with irritation. Override behavior. Subdue. The weapon charged. Avery's heart slammed against her ribs, and something inside the Karox snapped free. Not pain, not fear, a decision. It lunged. The motion should have been impossible with its injuries, but it moved like a creature remembering what it was before it was broken. Its weight hit the first trooper and drove it back into the corridor wall with a crash that shook the room. The trooper fired. Blue energy cut into the floor, leaving a molten scar inches from Avery's boots. Maddox and 2 human soldiers rounded the corner in the same instant, rifles raised. Back off! Maddox shouted. The Crick's troopers pivoted, weapons shifting targets. Maddox's squad fired warning bursts, controlled and precise, forcing the Cricks to retreat down the corridor. They did not flee in panic. They withdrew like predators promised a better strike later. The lead trooper spoke once more, voice cold as a blade. We will return for our asset. Then they vanished into smoke and red light. The hallway went quiet except for distant alarms, and the uneven breathing of a creature pushed beyond its limits. The Karox collapsed. Its legs gave out fully, bandaged limbs folding. Its heavy head hit the floor with a sound that made Avery flinch. She dropped beside it instantly, cradling the side of its face with both hands like it was something fragile. You did it, she whispered. You chose. The Karox's eye focused on her, glassy with exhaustion. It pressed its forehead weakly against her forearm, an instinctive gesture that felt like a vow. Avery swallowed hard. It still didn't know the word for trust, but it was living it. Hours later, the base was in controlled chaos. Evac lines formed, defense teams repositioned, engineers rerouted power. The Crick's raid had been a spear thrust, not a full invasion. They had come fast, hit hard, and tested the base for weakness. And now everyone understood the truth. This wasn't random. They were here because the Karox survived. Maddox stood in the healing bay doorway, breathing heavy from adrenaline. He watched the war beast lying on the platform again, chest rising and falling, Avery sitting nearby like a guard dog of her own. You just turned this base into a target, Maddox said. Avery looked up. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. It was already a target. We're human. Maddox didn't smile, but something in his expression softened. What do we do with it? Quote. Avery's answer came from her gut. We don't hand it over. Maddox stared at the Karox. And if the Dominion comes with a full strike force? Avery's voice dropped. Then we fight. Maddox turned away, jaw tight, and spoke into his comm. Command, this is Maddox. Confirming, Dominion retrieval team engaged at medical. Asset is still here. They will return. A pause. Then a harsh reply crackled back through the speaker. Understood. Prepare for escalation. Avery's stomach sank. Escalation meant the next wave would not be 2 troopers. It would be ships, heavy units, walkers. A force meant to break morale. Avery looked down at the Karox again. It was sleeping, but not peacefully. Its limbs twitched as if chasing old orders through a nightmare. She leaned close. You're not alone, she whispered. Not anymore. The creature's breathing steadied just a fraction. Then the base lights dimmed, power dipped. A deep vibration rolled through the floor, long and slow, like something massive settling into position overhead. Maddox returned to the doorway, eyes hard. They're moving ships into low orbit, he said. We just got confirmation. Avery's throat went dry. How many? Maddox didn't answer right away. He looked at her, then at the sleeping Karox. Enough, he said quietly, to make sure nobody walks away with it. Outside, the distant sky boomed again. Not thunder this time, but engines. And the Karox's eye opened, wide, alert, remembering. The sky burned. That was the first thing Avery noticed when she reached the outer barricade. Not smoke, not clouds, fire. Long streaks of burning light cut across the upper atmosphere, as Crick's dropships punched through, their engines screaming like wounded beasts. The ground trembled beneath her boots. Around her, human soldiers took positions behind scorched barricades and portable shields. Weapons hummed to life. Faces were tight, focused, afraid but steady. No one ran. Behind Avery, heavy footsteps landed on metal. The Karoks had followed her. It moved slower now, injury still fresh, but its posture was different. Straighter, purposeful. The creature that once waited for orders now stood on its own. Maddox turned, surprise flickering across his face. "It shouldn't be out here." Avery didn't look away from the sky. It chose to be. The Karoks' ears flattened as a familiar sound rolled across the battlefield. Crick's walkers. Massive, armored. Built to crush resistance through sheer presence alone. Their silhouettes emerged through drifting smoke, towering shapes of metal and Dominion markings. The Karoks' body tensed. Old fear surged. Old instincts screamed submission. But then Avery spoke, not loudly, not urgently. "You don't have to prove anything," she said. "Just stay with us." The creature's breathing steadied. It stayed. The first shot came without warning. A human shield flared as blue energy slammed into it, sending sparks cascading across the ground. Soldiers returned fire. Disciplined bursts, hammering the advancing Crick's line. Explosions cracked the air. The battlefield dissolved into chaos. The Karoks moved, not charging blindly, not obeying shouted commands. It moved where it was needed. When a barricade buckled, it planted itself there, massive body absorbing debris as soldiers fell back. When a squad was pinned by drone fire, it surged forward, tearing a hovering unit out of the air with brutal precision. Avery watched in awe. This was not the weapon the Cricks had built. This was something else. Maddox shouted orders beside her. Rifle barking controlled fire. "Left flank collapsing!" The Karoks heard the tension in his voice even if it didn't know the words. It sprinted despite the pain, leaping into the chaos with a roar that carried across the field. Crick soldiers hesitated. They had trained this creature to obey, not to choose. To break enemies, not protect allies. That hesitation cost them. The battle dragged on, every second heavy with exhaustion. Smoke thickened. Alarms screamed from damaged equipment. And then the ground shook harder than before. The walker arrived. It rose above the field like a metal god, weapon arrays glowing as they charged. One strike from it would erase the command post, end everything. Avery felt the fear lock her chest. The Karoks felt it too. Their eyes met across the noise and fire. No words passed between them. They both understood. The Karoks ran, not away, toward the walker. Avery screamed its name without realizing it had one now, without realizing when it had become more than a designation. The creature leapt, claws ripping into armored plating, tearing open cables and vents as sparks and fire erupted around it. The walker turned, weapons shifting. Avery moved. She sprinted forward with Maddox and two others, covering the Karoks with precise fire. Every opening it created, they exploited. Every hit it took, they answered. The walker staggered. It fired. The blast threw Avery to the ground, pain exploding through her shoulder. She rolled, gasping, ears ringing. Through blurred vision, she saw the Karoks launch again, hurling its body into the walker's damaged joint. Metal screamed. The walker collapsed. The explosion flattened everything nearby. When the dust finally settled, the battlefield fell silent once more. Avery pushed herself up, heart hammering. "Karoks," she whispered. She found it moments later, lying amid wreckage, armor scorched, chest rising and falling. Alive. She dropped beside it, ignoring the pain in her arm, pressing her forehead against its armored brow. "You're here," she breathed. "You did it." The creature's eye opened slowly, calm, clear. Around them, human soldiers stood in stunned silence. Then, one by one, they lowered their weapons. The Crick's forces were retreating. The war was not over everywhere. But here, on this broken ground, something had changed forever. Days later, the field was quiet again. This time, truly. The Karoks stood beside Avery at the edge of the base, watching engineers clear wreckage and soldiers rebuild defenses. Humans passed close now, without fear. Some even nodded. Some smiled. The creature did not bare its teeth. It did not need to. Maddox joined them, helmet under his arm. Command's decision is final, he said. The Karok stays. Voluntary ally status. Avery exhaled, relief flooding her chest. She rested a hand against the creature's side. It leaned into the touch just slightly. Once, it had been abandoned to die. Once it had known only obedience and fear. Now, it stood by choice. When stories of the battle spread, people didn't talk about tactics or numbers. They talked about the moment a war beast refused to return to its masters. About the moment it stood between humans and the past that tried to claim it. They said that was the day everything changed. The day loyalty was chosen. The day trust became strength.